Kuba is a business game that is designed to simulate a retail business. So during the game, the players are going to buy and sell inventory with the purpose of making as much profit as possible while still maintaining a set of balanced financial statements. So in the game box, what we've got here is we've got a game board, we've got a set of instructions, we've got our two primary financial statements that we're going to be filling in as we're working and operating through the game. We've got all of our different market cards. We've got liability, income, expense, asset, and investment cards. Those are going to be put onto the placeholders once we've set our game board up on the table ready to start playing. There's also some imitation currency and some various asset and liability cards that we'll speak to as we progress through the game. There are some colored tokens and a dice. So as I said, the nature of the game is it's a retail game, so players are going to wanting to try buy inventory and sell that inventory and make as much profit as possible. But the key part of this game is that it is also designed to equip you with the knowledge and skills to be able to read and understand financial statements. So every single time a transaction happens during the game, we're going to be recording that transaction into these two primary financial statements. So each player or team is going to receive a set of financial statements. It is made up of a statement of comprehensive income and a statement of financial position. We are going to make sure that every single time there's a transaction that happens for our business, it gets recorded into these two primary financial statements. Vitally important that we follow the instructions on the market cards. It'll tell us exactly how to record that transaction in the statements that we have with us here. Right at the beginning, we need to just bear in mind that every single one of these market cards has got a unique card number on the top left-hand corner. That little card number, every time we record a transaction, gets recorded in the grid at the bottom of the statement of financial position. That way, we can keep a track of which cards we've picked up for our business. And if we come into trouble later on, for example, if our financial statements don't balance, we can go back and check each one of those cards and make sure that we have recorded the transactions correctly in our financial statement. So on our game board here, there are two circles. We've got the outside circle. This is where players are going to make sales and generate income for their businesses. And then we have an inside circle is where traditionally players are going to come if they need to buy additional inventory. On the outside circle, we have all of these blue I blocks, and the I stands for income. If I land on one of those income blocks, I would pick up the top income card and complete the transaction that it explains to us. For example, this one says that I sell 7 units at 250 Rand each to a customer who pays cash. I understand how many units I'm going to sell. I understand what the selling price is, and it tells me if it's going to be a cash or an account sale. I would then carry out the transaction, put the inventory back into the market here, take the corresponding amount of cash, and make sure that I record the transactions into my financial statements as described on the card. So the income blocks are going to be where I'm going to be making sales. You want to land on those. That's going to help you to generate profit and income for your business. We have also these purple blocks with an E on it. The E stands for expense. If I land on an expense, traditionally what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be paying for something to run the business. So this one is I pay 350 Rand for advertising. I would take 350 Rand, give it back to the market here, and I would then need to record that in my financial statements as described on the card. On the outside circle, to keep things exciting, we've also got these yellow blocks with these company names on them. Now I get the opportunity to buy the shares in these companies if I land on them. If I own the shares in one of these companies and any of the competitors land on my company, they would need to pay me royalties for landing there. With these companies, I get an option. I can either pay cash for that company for the full purchase price, or I can take out a loan for the full purchase price for the payment of the shares in that company. If I borrow money at any time during the game, so if I generate loans at any time during the game, I need to pay interest on that money at the end of the game at 10%. So for example, if I've got loans of 3,000 Rand at the end of the game, I would need to pay 300 Rand interest on that loan. I don't have to repay the loan, only the interest gets paid during the playing of the game. So with the companies here again, either buy the shares for cash, or I can take out a loan to buy those shares, or I can do nothing. I can choose just to park and wait until my next turn. That is the only option opportunity where I don't have to perform a transaction if I don't want to. So owning these shares in these companies gives you an additional source of income if you feel that it's going to be worth it for you. Remember, if you own the shares in one of these companies, you're wanting to watch your competitors and make sure if they land on your company, they pay you the royalty as described on the cards. We then have these three orange blocks with an L on them. These are liabilities. Now, if we land on one of those blocks, we are either going to pay, repay, or borrow money. So these are looking at the repayments of loans or possibly borrowing additional money and generating further loans for our business here. These are the gateways between the inside and the outside circle. On the inside circle, I have a whole lot of these green A blocks. Now, the A stands for assets. This is traditionally where I'm going to buy additional inventory. So if I need more inventory for my business, I'm going to need to come to the inside circle, land on one of these blocks. It'll tell me how many units I'm going to buy and whether it's a cash or a credit purchase. For example, this one says that I purchased 20 units of inventory on account. So I would then take the additional inventory for my business, and I would need to make sure that I record those transactions in my financial statements, again as described on the cards. You will also see that there are a whole ton of additional expense blocks on the inside circle. That's just a warning. Now, when we play, we always go in a clockwise direction, and you get the opportunity to stay on the outside circle or move to the inside circle. You cannot move in and out through the same junction. So if I move in through here, I have to keep on flowing, and I can only go out one of the other gateways further along. Once you have landed on a block, you obviously pick up the corresponding market card, complete the transaction, let everybody know what the transaction was, and it is then the next player's turn to throw the dice, and they will then move around the game board as well. Now, to start the game, every player is going to receive 6,000 Rand in what we would call share capital. This is essentially the amount of money that the owners have invested into the business to get it started. We recommend that you take 5,500 Rand worth of 500 Rand notes, 400 Rands of 100 Rand notes, 150 Rand note, and then 50 Rands worth of 10 Rand notes. That'll be your opening share capital for your business, and every team will then need to record that transaction. It's the same transaction for all teams in our statement of financial position. Remember, every single transaction gets recorded in our financial statements. So the way we would record that, we would, under row F, under cash, we would add 6,000 Rand, and under share capital, under row G, we would add 6,000 Rand there. Again, those are described in the instruction pamphlet. Once we have got that share capital, that money in the bank, we can then decide how much inventory we want to put into our stores before we start operating, before we start trading. So this is the only opportunity you get to decide how much inventory you would like to purchase. If during the game you run out of inventory or you run low on inventory, you're going to have to come to the inside circle here, land on one of these asset cards, and that'll then give you an opportunity. It'll tell you how much additional inventory you get to buy. So at the outset here, you've got 6,000 Rand. You must decide how much do you want to invest into inventory and how much do you want to retain in cash. Remember, you still need cash to operate and to trade with, but you do need inventory in your business in order to be able to sell that. So you get an opportunity to decide how much that is. If, for example, I decide that I want to take 3,000 Rands worth of inventory and I'm going to keep 3,000 Rands worth of cash, I then need to pay 3,000 Rand to the business, into the market here, and I would take 30 of these inventory cards. That equates to 3,000 Rands worth of inventory for my business. So again, once I've done that, once you've decided how much inventory you want, you would pay that the amount to the market, take the inventory cards from the market, and record that transaction in your statement of your statement of financial position. The way we would do that under row F, my cash has now gone down because I've had to pay that money over. So I would say negative 3,000 under row F, and I've received 3,000 Rands worth of inventory. So under row D, inventory, I'm going to say plus 3,000 Rand. You'll see we record that every transaction twice. This makes sure that it always stays in balance. So we now have got some cash, we've got some inventory, we're ready to start playing. You would take the dice, the player that throws the highest number gets to start. Every player would put their chosen color token on the start here block here, And then the first player can roll the dice and they can decide whether they want to move around the outside circle or move on to the inside circle. Whatever block they land on, again, they would pick up the corresponding card, read out the transaction, trade anything that needs to be traded with the market here, and then record the transaction on their financial statements. So as we start to trade and as we start to move around the game board, if you land on one of these income blocks and you don't have enough inventory to fulfill the sale that it tells you on the card. So for example, if I'm sitting over here and I throw a 2, 1, 2, and I land over here, this blue income block here, I pick up the card and it tells me that I sell 7 units of inventory for 250 Rand each to a customer who pays cash. And I've only got 5 units of inventory left in my store. So I only have 5 of these inventory cards in my store. I don't have enough inventory to fulfill that sale. I would then lose that whole sale. That whole sale will be given to the player on the left. If they've got enough inventory, they can record that sale and they will generate all the income from that sale. So a word of warning, you don't want your inventory levels to run too low, because in that situation, you might land up where you get a great sale, but you don't have enough inventory to fill the sale, in which case that whole sale gets lost and it gets given to the team or the player on your left. So make sure you keep your inventory levels high enough, and you don't want to run out of cash in this game. If you run out of cash at any stage, so for example, if you land on an expense, it tells you that you've got to pay 500 Rand for wages and you don't have 500 Rand left, you are then declared bankrupt and you would leave the game. When it comes to completing the game, we recommend that you would play for 45 minutes. As soon as that 45-minute time is up, we would call that the end of the financial period, and we would stop and then want to complete our financial statements. When we get to the very end of our game and we've called the end of the game, the first thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that any of the players that have got loan cards or that have got a loan, a liability for a loan, need to pay interest on that loan to the market. So whatever amount of loan you've got, for example, if you've got 3,000 Rands worth of loans, you would need to pay 300 Rand interest into the market, and we would record that expense in our statement of financial position and our statement of comprehensive income. Again, these are described in this instruction booklet here. The way that we would record the payment of that interest, we would say under our cash, under row F, it would be minus 300 Rand because we are then paying the 300 Rand over. And in our statement of comprehensive income, under row S here, interest paid, we would say plus 300 Rand because we're increasing that expense into our business. Once we've all paid our loans and we've settled up everything that needs to be settled up in our business, we now need to complete our financial statements. And we start off by completing our statement of comprehensive income. The first thing that we would do is every single row, we would add them across, being very careful to make sure that we take into consideration the positive and negative numbers as we're going across, and we would put the totals of each row into the corresponding blocks at the end of our statement of comprehensive income here. We would then follow the formula down, so it would be sales minus cost of sales equals my gross profit. Then I would add all of these other incomes and subtract all of the other expenses. Right at the bottom, I'm going to land up with what I call my net profit. That shows me how much profit I've generated as a business. That net profit belongs to the owners of the business, and you'll see here, as per the instruction, it tells us that we transfer that profit over to our statement of financial position. So once we've worked out what our profit was, we would then come across to our statement of financial position. Remember, the team or the player with the highest net profit is the winner, provided that his financial statements balance. And that is why it's so vitally important that we record every single transaction as we're playing, as we're moving through. With the statement of financial position, again, we would go across every single column, every single row here, making sure that we take into account all the positive and negative numbers, and we would put the totals in the blocks at the end of the statement here, and again, follow the formula down. The top section here, we could calculate our total assets. We would come up to a total there, and then we do the same for our liabilities and our equity and liabilities below. Our share capital plus the net profit, that net profit from our statement of comprehensive income gets added in to my share capital. Then I've got any other loans, any other liabilities that I might have, and I'm going to get my total liabilities here. Now my total assets and my total equity and liabilities should be equal. If those are equal, I know that everything has been recorded perfectly, and I can validate that my profit and everything that is sitting on these financial statements is correct.